patient boys I could possibly ask for. Thanks for putting up with my endless hours at the computer, my travels away from home, and the fact you always have creases in your school uniforms because I don't iron. Love you all. Dedication. Best friends know how crazy you are and still choose to be seen with you in public. I'm lucky to have 6 women in my life I can call such friends, and I want to thank them all for the support they've given me over the years. Amy, Holly, Kirsten, Kristen, Leanne, and Penny, alphabetical order girls. I'm so blessed to have you in my life, and this book is for all of you. Chapter 1. 20 years ago, Adam Burton had been playing in this very spot with not a care in the world on his shoulders. He'd been making mud pies out of the sludge in the bottom of the nearest dam, piling them up high, and then shooting them down with his handmade catapult. His sister had been helping him. He remembered her girly pink t-shirt had been soaked with mud. But then he didn't understand what had happened next. He vaguely remembered his catapult breaking and the focus it took to fix it. Could barely have been 5 minutes, though, and when he looked up, she was gone. Even now, whenever he thought of it, his heart thudded exactly as it had done that day. He'd searched the area surrounding him, screaming her name and running faster than his legs had ever carried him before. There was barely any water in the dam, but he ran all around it anyway, peering in desperation into the middle. But it was like she'd gone poof and vanished into thin air. She could have gotten bored and walked back to the homestead, but even then something in his gut, in his heart, told him something real bad had happened. When he'd eventually gone home to break the news to his mum that he'd lost his 7-year-old sister, snot, dirt, and tears were meshed together on his face, and his 10-year-old legs and arms were covered in scratches from all the times he'd fallen in his haste. He'd been sobbing so hard it had taken an age for him to get the words out. Mum hadn't been mad. She'd sat him at the kitchen table, wiped his face with a wet dishcloth, poured him a glass of milk, and then gone to radio his father, who'd been at the other side of the farm harvesting the wheat crop. There weren't many things that could drag a farmer from his harvest, but the disappearance of his 7-year-old daughter was one of them. Adam remembered the horrors of what followed like it was a movie he'd watched 100 times over. The police, the search and rescue volunteers, even an Aboriginal tracker. And then, when no sign was found of her, the local minister, the journalists, and the extended family members arrived. Even though it was Adam who'd last seen his sister, his parents had been the obvious suspects. He'd never understood how anyone could even contemplate that. They'd been cleared, of course, but that hadn't made anything better. Standing alongside his mother and father now, the 3 of them like a row of weary soldiers, Adam could barely believe it had been 2 decades since his little sister had gone missing. He looked out across the paddock, which was smack bang in the middle of their 2,500-hectare property. Although he kept it fire-braked for safety reasons, it hadn't been used since that fateful day. Stupid, really, letting a perfectly good paddock go wild. But his father hadn't harvested here, and he doubted, now that he was in charge, he ever would either. Some things were sacred, and in lieu of a gravesite they could visit to lay flowers and pay their respects, this was all they had. He came here often, and he knew his parents did too. They all mourned in their own different ways, but once a year, on the anniversary of the day she'd disappeared, they came together in the morning and scattered lilies on the ground. They used to talk when they came, share memories, but now they stood in silence, no doubt all thinking about what could have been. The memories had faded, the hole filled in by grief in its most destructive form. Adam had to think so hard it hurt his head to remember his sister's endless giggles, her messy golden ringlets, and that unrelenting smile that drew 2 perfect dimples in her cheeks. No doubt she'd annoyed him as younger siblings were prone to do, but if that were the case, it was just one more thing he couldn't remember. His dad, Dave, had wanted to clear a bit of land properly here and erect some kind of memorial, but his mum, Esther, had never allowed it. She believed doing such a thing would be akin to giving up hope, and, although you wouldn't believe it to look at her, apparently she still had that in her heart.